and you more want to hear that. Is that you? I'm here.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Amanda Maseno, and I will be your host for today and also the moderator for the session. So before we start, I'd like to request everyone to probably mute their device. So I'll just give you like 1 minute to just mute your device. Yes, so we will start the session with the national anthem. So I'd like everyone, you can join in. Oh God of all creation, bless this our land and nation. Justice be our shield and defender. May we dwell in unity, peace and liberty. Plenty be found within our borders. Okay, so a little bit of housekeeping for the day. For the session, as I said earlier, you can mute your device, and we can, if you have any questions, put them on the chat and we can be able to address them at the end. So I'll just go ahead and introduce our speaker for the day, who is Miss Christine Kipsang. So she will be talking to us and covering the divorce meditation, and she will be talking about it in terms of our topic that has been running through the whole program and the whole session, which is family wealth mediation. We want to unravel divorce from that broad question of, as family mediators, how might we be able to transform the outcomes for families in distress? So she'll basically, as a legal practitioner, she'll be telling us the process involved and the topic, and she'll take us through the legal aspects and all that. So I'll invite her to take us through the first part and we will just discuss it in broad. So welcome, Christine. Christine, can you hear me?
Yes. Thank you so much, moderator. Good evening, participants.
Okay, love you. Good night.
Yes, thank you. Please try and so that we can be able to connect and proceed together.
Which app did you want to join? You came to look funny.
Are we able to mute?
You have quizzes, you know that? You know? Tuesday. And you must have
Sorry, kindly can everyone mute themselves so that we can be able to continue with the session?
Yes, thank you for that. For a brief introduction, in addition to what the moderator said, I would like to say I'm an advocate dealing with family matters based in Mombasa. And this topic is one of the topics that I would like every Kenyan thank you. So I was saying that when I was approached by, somebody has muted me.
Go ahead, we can hear you.
Okay. So I was saying that the broad question of family wealth is tied to the issue of family unity. And this issue of family unity stems from the issue of marriage. And for most people, especially because we say this is a topic we are discussing for those who are married or those who are aspiring to be married or those who are above 18. So I'm hoping that there are no children who are logged in the session, so that when we discuss freely and we understand each other. So the issue is on the topic of family wealth, we are looking at what is the importance of marriage and how does it connect with divorce. And for the record, I'm an advocate of 19 years and 6 months, and I've dealt with so many divorce matters, so many annulment matters, so many separation matters that really affect the family wealth. So I'll come back to that part later on. I'm sure the moderator will ask me 1 or 2 questions on that. But when I got this topic, I realized that you cannot talk about divorce before you can talk about marriage. Because before a divorce takes place, there have to be a marriage. And in Kenya, we have had various types of marriages which exist, but the main ones are 5. We have marriages under the Christian faith. We have marriage under the Islamic faith. We have marriages under Hindu. We have marriages under the customary marriage. And if you look at the then last one, the civil marriage. So you find that there are parameters that have been set by the Marriage Act. Of course, if you're a mediator or an advocate who has logged in, you'll know that over time we had different system of marriages that were under separate statutes or acts of parliament. But right now we have one, which is Marriage Act number 14 of 2014, that was passed so that it can consolidate all those systems of marriages into one. So you find that if it's a Christian marriage, there are requirements in terms of capacity. You have to be above 18, that is a minimum. Minimum is 18 years, and you cannot marry somebody within what we call prohibited groups of where you can marry, in terms of you can't marry your relatives. So it's all laid down in the act. Then again, you cannot marry somebody who has mental incapacity. Let's say he has recurrent, what we call recurrent bouts of insanity. You cannot marry such a person. Then when it comes to Christian, again, because Christian marriage is monogamous marriage, you cannot marry that person who is already married, because he'll be committing a crime marrying another person while he's still married. Then when it comes to civil, it's still basically the same. other than the fact that now, instead of going to a church minister, for civil marriages, you have to do it at the registrar of marriages. You give a notice of 21 days, and within 3 months after giving that notice, you are supposed to get married. And again, you have to be above 18 years. The prohibited sections of consanguinity should not be there. And the same applies to the issue of mental health. So then when it comes to Islamic is quite interesting because cousins can get married. But again, you cannot marry somebody who is under 18. So given that the Hindu and the customary marriage is still applies, the same scenarios of capacity. So given that marriages, especially in Kenya, we take them seriously. You have seen the way if somebody becomes of age, the aunties start hinting of how you should get married or how we should, you should get a place of your own. So marriages in Kenya are taken seriously. And even given that like I've said, that Act number 12 of 2014, you find that a whole big chunk of this act has been dedicated to the issue of marriage. If you look at this act, you find from section 1 all the way to section 63, they are talking about the types of marriage, who should marry, where you should do it, how you should give the notice. And so a whole chunk, because it's only about, I think, 94 sections. You find from 1 to 63 is concentrating on marriage. Then when it comes to what is divorce, you find that under Article 60 is when it starts talking of decree of annulment, decree of separation, decree of divorce, and all that. So you find that there is a hint on the issue of dissolution. But when it comes down to the proper section of dissolution, it comes from 64. And it's interesting that the grounds for dissolution of a marriage, they are almost all the same. There are 5 main grounds. And the first one is where there is unfaithfulness in the family. If I go back a bit, I've said marriage is very important in Kenya. It is based on faithfulness and trust. Because if you get married to your friend, you have already committed to this person that you need to live together, you eat together, you stay together in one place, you gather in investments together, you get children together. As in, it is a long-term relationship. You have decided that this is what you want to do. So one of the reasons why we get divorce is whereby if somebody files a petition in court, they now go ahead and present their evidence, and after the court hears the reasons or the grounds, as we call it, the court is able to make a determination whether to give you the grant, to give you the divorce or not. So if the decision by the court is done, is what we call now dissolution. The marriage is now dissolved. Then you are given something we call decree nisi, and after some time, then you are given decree absolute. Then when it's decree absolute, it means that now you are completely separated. You cannot now call yourself husband and wife. So you find that given that one of the main ground is unfaithfulness, and if you look at, like I said, there are 5 types of marriages. In all of them, that is the number 1 ground, unfaithfulness, or what we call adultery in legal terms. So you can ask yourself, actually you can reflect in your life and ask yourself, why is it this one number 1? Where are people unfaithful? You met, let's say when you are 25, another one was 27, I'm at 30, and you commit, you swear and commit to live together and trust each other and commit to one another, and you start life together. Why is it unfaithfulness is the biggest culprit here? We'll come back to that. The other point which is the main other ground, is cruelty. There's so much violence in families, yeah? This one I can tell you for free. There's so much violence, and it starts bit by bit. But what is interesting about the things I've seen as a divorce lawyer is that this issue of violence was there even the time of courtship. There were red flags, but one party just ignores them and says, my babe will change. My sweetheart will change. But those red flags are there. When now somebody comes to me, I realize that this issue they are telling me, it was there. And violence does not, which fuels now the conflict until you come to a divorce lawyer. You find that most of the time it starts bit by bit. It can be verbal, it can be mental, it can be physical, it can be psychological, it can be a combination of all that. And what happens, you find that the person gets so tormented, by the time they come to your office, they have already done some irrational decisions of maybe attacking the other person. You know, if you attack, you can counterattack. You can do it in self-defense. So you find they already have maybe a criminal case, and then the next thing you find, or criminal report where this occurrence book where their reports are what we call OB at the police station. So you find that violence is also it's number two, and you find that this kind of violence really affect both parties, because even violence can be where somebody is giving what others say as silent treatment. Imagine this is your best friend. You have sworn before God or before the registrar or before the elders, if it's customary marriage, that it's death which will part you. But all of a sudden you're being so violent that the escalation becomes, it goes step by step until, you cannot live together. The other issue I will say is one of the grounds, and so the court will consider whether this violence was meted or new, and you kept quiet, you acquiesced to it, you agreed to it or something like that. Like the way I said, you keep on saying that this person will change. It's very important that people love each other. It's very important because one of the things I've realized, as much as you want to say the party will change, you will find that whether you like it or not, that person you married, because you see, it's like terms do not attract, it's unlike terms that attract. So you find if one person is talkative, you attracted a person who is very quiet or who is a good listener. You can be an orator, the other person is a good listener. So most of the time when now the person who becomes like a dominant party, starts shouting, started doing all this, then the other person is affected. So violence can be, there are several types of violence. So the court will consider several issues to piece it together to see whether this violence was meted on this person or they're making up. The other point, what we call another ground for divorce is what we call desertion. Desertion is to desert. To desert is to leave a person for more than, and the ground requires that you leave that person for more than, or your spouse, that is, for more than 3 years. And most of the time you find there's something we call, as the court, there are many petitions I've read that they are very interesting. You find that some people have what we call constructive desertion, where they are in the same house, they're living together, but they're not living together. I don't know whether you understand me. They are living in a different bedroom. They are living in a different room. They are not eating the food, as in there's no friendship anymore. There's no trust anymore, but they are living together there because of maybe cultural aspects where the people do not want to be seen as if they are not together, or maybe because of other expectations. But you know, now for the ground of decision to really be considered by the court looks at many parameters. And as I said, this issue just increase or go on in increasing portions, such that by the time you come to file a petition, then it is really a serious issue. So decision, you find that the one now which is clear is where there are people who leave completely. They leave the spouse they got married to, and they go start another family, or even they just go stay alone. And you know, if the person has deserted you for more than that, then you have every choice to make an application to court on that main ground. And there are many cases of that kind that have taken place, both the ones you can find in the High Court or even the lower court nowadays, because the lower court is handling divorce matters. Then the other ground is what we call exceptional depravity. Exceptional depravity. And you know, there are people who have, I don't want to call them inhuman, but there are people who really mistreat the love of their lives at one time. So you find that they really, really mistreat you. They deny you what you really like most. There are cases where if you read case law, you'll find that people even lock their spouses in their house the whole day, and they go. And they will come and open. They are the ones with the key. So sometimes you find that it's very important that you as a divorce lawyer, you listen to the scenarios, and also you research, because there is case law where you can find the kind of cases that are there that can explain what happens. But you see, like sometimes what I've gathered over the years is that some things which we write, the divorce petitions have are not the same as what people have as or the spouses have as the underlying issues. So you may find the things that they are not being said, they are more than the ones which are being said. Because, for example, if a couple gets married and now they divorce after 25 years or 30 years or even 40 years of marriage, you find that apart from this main relationship, which is between the husband and wife, their relationship of the children, their relationship to deal with the cousins, the aunties, the uncles, the relatives, the mutual friends, the business partners, the networks. So there's a lot that is said that is not put in a divorce petition, but it affects that person to the extent that even after the divorce, the person may say, I'm free now, or have all the time in the world, or I can start a new relationship, but they are still hurting. And these are things we need to reflect and ask ourselves as mediators. How do we resolve this? Because at the courts, at the main courts, at the law courts where the petitions are filed, some things are underlying the main petition, such that they do not really come up and they are never determined. So if you have a case of extreme depravity, you have to really listen carefully, because sometimes you can judge, you feel like you tend to want to judge. But again, this is the life of this person. So it's very important that you listen to the particular case that is being presented before you. The other issue is about the other fifth ground is the issue of the marriage as irretrievably broken down. And you find this ground starts with the issue of non-communication. Okay, when you are young, when you get married when you are young, you find you are learning how to communicate with this person, you are learning how to negotiate, you are learning how to have a balance in life. And you know, there are critical issues because within no time, children start coming, and of course there are in-laws to deal with, as in, there are so many. Before it was just the two when you are courting, you are doing courtship, but now when you get married, you find there's another network altogether that you have to deal with. So you find that the issue of non-communication, because there are people who just keep quiet or ignore or just say one word and that's it. They don't want to say anything. You find that with time, you find the fabric of communicating, of caring one another or appreciating another person that is in your life is as totally gone down, totally. And then you find that in this issue, you find that the person looks like it does not care, but in essence, there was a lot of neglect or refusal to nurture the relationship from the word go. So you find that if those elements, like the grounds I've said, are missing, then the court can be able to give the petition that we have filed. Another question I was posed is the issue of how long does a divorce take place? My experience is different in terms of some cases you find they can take 3 months, other cases can take 6 months. But I have one particular case I have never forgotten. It took 5 years. Yes, you have heard well, 5 years. Until the issue was the judge did not deal with the issues. So the parties kept on making application after application after application after application. And it took 5 years. It took 5 years. So sometimes we may say this is the easy way out, filing for divorce. But I can tell you, sometimes God says no. God says no. Because remember, this is your partner. God says no. So it's very important that you ask yourself, when I'm going through this issue, is it an issue that I would want to try and negotiate with my partner before I take it to the court, or is an issue that I want to take to the court? And you know the way the courts are, sometimes you go to court, when you file the petition, the other person writes other things, then the other person writes other things, and this one writes other things, and this one adds more. So the more you write, the more you find that you are exposing your privacy to the court. You are exposing your communication or lack of communication to the court. You are exposing, intimate information to the court, which, if you ask me, sometimes is unnecessary, because the petition ought to be specific and to the point. So most of the time you find the information that is being given not only hurts the person, but to some extent it hurts the lawyers. And you know, sometimes we actually have to go for something you call debriefing, because this person has come to you with all this, and you have to actually sift through to see what to write to the court. And once you take it to the court, then the other person, now maybe they did not get a lawyer, will sieve it through, and they bring a lot, and then this person has to respond. So sometimes you can have back and forth. Of course, I know sometimes TVs or magazines or other things show that is divorce is highly dramatic or full of emotions. I do not deny that. There's a lot of emotional drain. There's a lot of stress. There's a lot of financial stress. because you have to pay for the divorce, you have to pay for the petition, you have to pay for the applications that keep on popping here and there, because all that processes are required for you to be disengaged from this person. And that's what I'm saying, that divorce is not, it should be the last option for you to take. Then I wanted to go to the issue of registration of marriages. I know this Act of 2014 has said every marriage in Kenya ought to be registered. But ask yourself, reflect on this issue. How many marriages do you know that are not registered? Every marriage in Kenya ought to have a certificate, whether customary, Islamic, I've said the 5 ones, the Islamic, Christian, Hindu, customary, and the other one is what, civil. All of them, you should have a certificate. But how many of us know marriages, whether customary, civil, or other people who are getting married? You know, like civil and Christian, they're supposed to be monogamous marriages. But there are people who are getting married when they have a certificate to marry one person, they go marry another person. How many people know about those kind of people who are committing such offenses? The same thing you find in somebody is married customarily, where you find maybe he has 2 or 3 wives, but now they end up going to church to marry one of them. So they were polygamous, but now they want to contract a monogamous marriage. So you find, if people do things that are not right, you find the registration of marriage will not take place. And there's a section in the Act that says that if you do not register your marriage, you can be fined 5,000, or you can even be committed to what we call community service by given a community service order, and you proceed to undertake work maybe at the chief's area or something like that. So from August 2014, every marriage in Kenya is supposed to be registered. Okay. Now let's turn to the issue of the cases that would scare everyone from filing a divorce. There's this one case, okay, it's already a reported case, the Echaria and Echaria case. This couple were married for a long time, I believe 25 years. One party was a diplomat, and when he traveled outside the country, it was necessary that he goes with the wife and the children. So when they went there, because being a diplomatic wife, you cannot work in the country that your husband is a diplomat. She was basically a housewife. So when they finished their mission, they came back to Kenya, and there were issues because they had invested in properties, they had title deeds or real estate as we call it, and they filed a divorce matter. They filed a divorce matter, and they also filed what we call matrimonial property. And the court decided that this lady, she needs to show her contribution to these properties, because you see, the man is one who had a paycheck, who had a checkbook, who was buying everything was in his name. And I read that case, and I was wondering, you mean the law can favor only the person with a paycheck? You mean the law can only favor the person who can show a contribution that can be reduced into writing? So you find that that case changed everything, because from that case is when we came to the issue of what the Act is saying now, that parties before marriage, they have equal rights. During marriage, they are equal rights. And after marriage, even after dissolution of the marriage, have equal rights. And the issue of contribution, of who has contributed what, it can be both financial contribution or indirect contribution in terms of child care, taking care of the house, you know, doing domestic work, you know, it can be quantifiable. So you find that some scenarios that happen in the community can actually trigger a change in the law, a change in policy, a change in the regulation, a change in the rules, so that there is fairness and justice to all the parties. That is one case. And then another case I've come across is the case of where in Kenya now we have marriages which are based on deception, actually fraud. Like in the coast, you find there are cases where you come across them that so a foreigner comes to Kenya, then they get married to a Kenyan, and believe it or not, that Kenyan is already married, whether customarily or otherwise, they get married. And you see, like I said, some customary marriages are not registered. So this person, if they were to check at the registrar's office, they will find that this person is not married. Or if they were to check with the local church, there will be no record. So you find that by the time this person who has now contracted this marriage with the Kenyan, you find that now the person has realized that the person who was a Kenyan who was getting into this marriage did not get into the marriage for the purpose of what a marriage is supposed to do. But they have gotten it because of maybe he wants money from the foreigner. And you know, the foreigner was thinking that this person loves them. And you know, that is quite a bad scenario. And you find that such cases, we do what we call annulment. Annulment because within a few months, you'll be able to realize that you are deceived by this person, and the law, the act now requires that you file that case within 1 year. And you show that the person did not understand what he was getting to, or whatever circumstances they are, so that they can be, or the person did not have the capacity. The person who was already married did not have capacity to contract another marriage. So that is another operating scenario. Or even you find that somebody who is married customarily, like I said, they want to get married to a church, and you find those scenarios you have seen in the newspapers of people filing a notice of objection, and then that objection, now the act says that it should be considered by the local pastor within 7 days, and if 7 days are over and the person is not certified, then within 14 days they can file an appeal at the court, and that there is no marriage which can take place until that appeal is heard and determined. So those are scenarios where you find if they were avoided, we will not have some kind of distressful petitions that we usually see at the courts, or you read as part of the case law of already decided cases. The other issue is the other type of cases I've seen very common, that it's issue of the people who are married customarily wanting to contract a civil or a Christian marriage. And you can imagine that is so distressful. If somebody has like 3 or 4 wives up country, and then they come to town and they want to get married to the secretary or the lady in the estate or whoever it is. So you find that those scenarios bring a lot of distress, because you remember this person who has married customarily, these people are working maybe in the farms, or they have invested a lot. And then now when this other marriage is contracted and they have to go to court and all that, it affects the family wealth, because you find that the person has to spend money to cater for the divorce petitions, proceedings, and the cost of the lawyer and the cost of filing fees and all that. which money could have been used to promote family wealth that is that has been accumulated by the wives that were married through the customary marriage. Now, you may ask yourself, so where is the place of the mediator? And I would want to take you, allow me to turn to the page. In the Act, we have 2 scenarios where you can come in as a mediator. One is the issue of dissolution of Christian marriages. Under Section 64, let me get there, there's an issue of mediation of disputes. Under this section, the Act is saying that before a divorce petition can be filed by a Christian, the dispute must be mediated by what we call reconciliation bodies that are established by that particular church. So you can ask yourself, as a mediator, in my local church, is there a reconciliation body that can deal with marital disputes before they can spill over to the court? So if there is none, then the Act is very clear. Section 64 is talking of those disputes concerning Christian marriages should be dealt with in that particular church. And you know very well, as mediators, we are peacemakers. So you can be part and parcel of that body that you can establish in your local church. And all these Christian marriages we find at the court can be dealt with by mediators at that first level, which is the local church, where these parties go to worship, and you can be able to be resolving that matter. You know, mediation works in terms of the parties' autonomy. They can choose if the reconciliation body has several advocates or several mediators, then they can be able to be given a chance to choose the person they would want to deal with in the case of mediation. And you'll find that marriages, you know, the way mediation works, you know very well that marriages will be preserved, relationship will be preserved, and wealth, which family wealth would go to waste, will also be preserved, and we'll have even peaceful family units within us. Then the other section that deals with mediation, thought no very overt, is Section 66 of the Act. Section 66, it says, when this is now dealing with civil matters, civil marriages, sorry, I'm used to civil matters. So I've said for Christian is Section 64. Reconciliation bodies have to be established by the church, and then it can be, of course, even the church bodies, you know, like the National Council of Churches in Kenya, you know, can have such bodies where we can have mediators attached to them, so that all the Christian marriages, as I've said, do not show up in court as divorce petitions. Then Section 66 deals with the civil matters, civil marriages. And the interesting part in this section, it says that the court, once the matter has been filed in court, the court can now adjourn it for 6 months for you to go back for conciliation to see whether you can resolve this matter. So again, within those 6 months, the court can give even further directions on the attempt of reconciliation. Because I'll talk more about the divorce. Divorces are quite unsettling, and actually people suffer more than if they resolved the dispute that is before them. So the court can give the parties 6 months for mediation. And again, if now as a mediator you are well placed to get the brief, or like now the way we have the court-annexed mediation, these matters will first go for mediation, and then of course court-annexed mediation is 60 days, but the Act talks of 6 months. So this one, there's an opportunity there for mediators to look at the issue and see how you can resolve it. Then the other section I found that mediators come in is the customary marriages, and part 5. Part 5 says that, sorry, let me just see. Yes, dissolution, section 68. You find that under section 68 of the customary marriages, mediation is written in boldly there, that parties have to attempt customary dispute resolution, and including mediation, before they can file a petition. So you may find even once a petition is filed, the court can, you can be able to point out that issue to the parties, and the parties can be able to go back to mediation so that it can be able to resolve the dispute before it can get out of hand. So those are the main sections that I've seen that it is an opportunity for mediators to point out, especially now that divorce matters are being filed at the resident magistrate. We can be able to sensitize the registrar of dealing with mediation, so that they can be able to see that those particular sections call for mediation, and relationship will be restored, or even if the parties still go for divorce, there will be less animosity or less write-ups that I see that are quite unsettling. And you know, every court record is a record, is a permanent record, where even the children can still find that this is what dad said to mom, or this is what mom said to dad, which can be quite unsettling. Yes. I think I would like to stop there, so that if there are questions which I have not been checking, I can be able to answer. Thank you, moderator.
Okay, thank you so much, Christine Kipsang. So for anyone who has just joined us, we've had a session with Christine Kipsang, who has taken us through a very broad and general understanding of marriage and how it's legislated in Kenya. For those who joined, we've just gone through understanding marriages, the types of marriages that exist in Kenya. We've gone through the grounds of divorce, and she's mentioned unfaithfulness, cruelty, exceptional deprivation. We've also gone through how long a divorce generally takes, and she's mentioned that it can even take 3 months to up to 5 years. And divorce is a very tasking and emotional process, and there are a lot of issues that come up, including the financial constraints that come with it. We've also gone through a little bit talking about the registration of marriages, and she's mentioned that in the new act, the not so new act, but the Marriage Act of 2014, all marriages are supposed to be registered. And she's also discussed about how practical is that, considering many marriages are even within the customary marriages scope. And we know quite a number, even if you think about it, in the remote areas, most of them are not registered. She's also briefly taken us through some cases. We've gone through the case of Echaria versus Echaria. She's talked about fraudulent marriages, and also a situation whereby someone who has married via polygamy now chooses to change to a monogamous marriage, having already had previous marriages, a previous polygamous marriage. marriages. And finally, she's taken us through what is the place of mediation in terms of dealing with marriage disputes and the divorce process. And she's taken us through section 64 all the way to 68, looking at how the Act has legalized and put it in legal terms, the place of reconciliation and the place of mediation in that perspective. And finally, she's concluded by telling us a little bit about how mediation really deals with animosity issues. The fact that divorce can be very emotional, and you can imagine a situation where children are coming in and they can actually, there are records of that particular issue, that particular divorce, and children can see, you know, what mom was saying to dad and what dad was saying to mom, which I feel like mediation tries to help in that scenario. So thank you so much, Ms. Kipsang. You've really done a comprehensive job in helping us understand marriage and the place of mediation in conflict resolution, particularly in family wealth mediation, which is the discussion for WASILIANAHUB and what exactly we're trying to understand and go through. So at this point, I'd like to invite any questions, but first, before I do that, I'll go through a couple of the comments that I've seen coming up. First, I see Patricia M has said, I fully agree divorce drains one physically, emotionally, psychologically, economically, and the list is endless. I also see a comment from Rashid Mbwiza, who says, great session from Council Kipsang, that he's learning a lot. I also see a comment from Jennifer Kuma, who says, this is a very educative session. And also someone who has not identified themselves asks one question: what if by the time the Christian marriage was conducted, both parties were religious, but at the time of divorce, one or both are irreligious? Is the couple still required to seek mediation from the church they already left? So I'll give that to you, Ms. Kipsang, to maybe take us through that question. And I can also see a comment from Esther, who says, great insights. And also I see a comment from Jane, who says, mediation should be voluntary, and if one party is not interested, they should not be forced. Then I also see a question from G. They identify themselves as G. How does one become a mediator? So yes, I think just go through those questions first, and then we can be able to decipher the rest.
Okay. Thank you, moderator. Let me just answer the first one. But first of all, I want to register my appreciation for all the comments and the feedback that I'm receiving on the chat. In regard to the person who has become irreligious, if I don't know whether this is such a word, it means that then if the person, like Jane has said, mediation is voluntary, and you see if the parties are aware that mediation is available or mediators are available to resolve disputes, they can choose to go for mediation, not necessarily from the church or the reconciliation bodies that have said need to be established in our churches. So we are about 400 mediators. So the parties can still choose a mediator from the panels that are existing right now, because most mediators right now are professionally trained, and they understand that they need to be kind, patient, trustworthy, confidential. So it is still the same knowledge of mediation that will be applied whether they were in the church body or a private mediator. Yes. Then on the issue of on the issue is, how do you become a mediator? Mediators, you have to go through a training. I've gone through a training in the year 2014 through the MTI. Is a team of mediators from US that are now having a branch in East Africa. they're based in Nairobi, and they do mediations for 40 hours. That is a basic training, whereby 8 to 5 for 5 days, that is Monday to Friday, with very short breaks for lunch or health breaks. You learn through interactive sessions of about 20 to 25 participants, so that you can be able to understand the nitty-gritties of good communication, negotiation, and how to actually resolve a dispute in a competent manner. Because most of the time, people, if they are incompetent in terms of how to deal with a dispute, they fuel the dispute more. It becomes worse than becoming less acrimonious and able to find a solution. So you will be taken through the process of becoming a competent person to resolve a dispute, to the point that you'll be able to first even resolve disputes within yourself and dispute around the people you have. You can even become a mediator for people around you, where you live, in your family, and then now to even getting the paying clients. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I also see another question from Galaxy A50. They haven't identified themselves, but they ask, a friend was married in church. After some time, the husband deserted her with her child and took another wife, got children, and later went abroad with the second wife. The lady has a suitor, but is unable to get married again. The filing of divorce is expensive. So what are the steps that she can take? Christine?
Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you for that question. By the way, the question is, I mean, portrays scenarios that I've met so many times. One thing I want to say is that when one partner does not release the other partner, it's quite a painful experience. Only the person who is in such a situation can tell you how it feels. Because most of the time, people want to move on and want the other relationship to just die. I mean, they imagine the unimaginable, because how do you just let the person stay like that? Because they feel, as much as there are bad feelings between this person, just know that the person who is in that other country still loves you. They still have some warm feelings. So you find that the person is trying, with this new marriage, they are trying to see whether it is going to work or is not going to work. So most of the time, it's like they are saying, you are my plan B. But now you see your plan B, it's making you not move on, and the other person is moving on. Because you know this other person is also digging in so fast. If he's giving children, she'll give birth very quickly so that she has like 5 children, and when you have 2, you know. So, but beside all that, it's one thing, you can take steps to move on. You can file a divorce petition in court. And right now we have, I'm sure the country went, the person, there are embassies where you can be able to effect service, because I believe in Western world, you find that people can be easily traced. The other thing, if you can confirm the person is in Kenya or comes in Kenya, then you can serve him when he comes here, or you can actually advertise in the newspaper. That's process, we call it substituted service, where you can actually establish that this person cannot be found or cannot be established where the person is, and then you're allowed to serve, not personally, but now through a paid advertisement. It will cost you to pay for the advertisement, which is not less than maybe 16,000. The last I paid for, I think, was 13,000. So maybe by now the newspapers have gone. So you will come more to do service, because you have to really show that you notified this person to be aware that you want to be released from this marriage bond. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I will go to the last question for the day, which is by Ruth Mwangi, who asks, would you recommend divorce for a married couple of Christian faith where the man is bisexual and is abusive emotionally and sometimes physically? The spouse feels he's risking both their health with infections from the other set of relations.
Well, you see, like I said before, thank you, Ruth, for that question. Like I said before, when you are presented with a scenario, you have to really listen to the person who is like petition, who want to file the petition, to really understand the broad facts or the broad things that are not being said. So without much information, I will not say this, but the fact that he's saying abusive emotionally and physically, it means that there's the element of abuse, the element of violence. So that can be a ground, but I told you sometimes you can file a petition and it is dismissed and you'll be surprised because you have not met the threshold. So I would ask the person to actually give more information when it comes to maybe filing the divorce petition so that it is clear. Because I've told you the 5 grounds, each of them have to be proved by a particular standard, you know. There's a standard of proof. So you cannot just allege something that you cannot prove. If you are stating something, then you need to prove it. Yes. And you see that most of the time you find it's the life the couple lives, nobody outside that scenario lives that life. So you find that you have to give more facts or more information or more data for the court to be convinced that this union should be disengaged. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. So I'll just mention a few more comments. I can see a comment from Eve N, who says, thank you for your presentation, God bless. And also I see Sylvia Kipkoech has said, thank you for a very informative session. So I think we can all just conclude that this session has been so informative, and we'd really like to appreciate our speaker for the day, Christine Kipsang, who has really she's walked us through the whole Marriage Act, understanding it, breaking it down for everyone so that we can be able to understand how our role as mediators, what role we can play, and how we can be able not only to mend the relationship, not only to solve the dispute, but also mend the relationship between the parties. So I'd like to appreciate everyone today for joining us during this session, and we're looking forward to having more sessions like this so that we can be able to engage and learn in a bigger platform. So at this juncture, I would like to invite the convener and the organizer for WASILIANAHUB to just say a few words and possibly to give us a closing brief. Wangari?
Madam Christine, I think we don't owe you one, we owe you several. As soon as COVID has been COVIDed out, really, Christine, it's been such a delight. Thank you so much. It's a delight to have you, Christine. We say that, yes, the years of experience are worth it, and it is really for us to actually find how we can find the people with experience and be able to tap in and learn and really learn from them. Amanda, I'd like to say thank you very much. We are in the Young Mediators Month, and our moderator today is Amanda, who's one of our young mediators. Together with the other peers who are young mediators, they're really giving us a run on this month of June, which is the Young Mediators Month. Mediators and also peers, colleagues in dispute resolution, and also friends who've joined in. Thank you for joining us in this conversation. You make it more vibrant. We are delighted that this is a 3-part discussion, and that's why we are calling it a divorce meditation first, before we can start engaging in discussions on divorce mediation, which possibly is an area that some of the mediators could specialize in, and they could work closer with persons like Christine, or even work with other advisors to the parties. I'd like to, at this juncture, remind us all that we have our Q2 Mediation Day Symposium coming up on June 25th. Our symposium day runs from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. You'll be delighted to know that for the month of June, on June 25th, we are hosting a mediator who's also a practitioner from the Asian region. And the theme that we have is focused on the financial industry and also the commercial industry. And the discussion we'll be having is we are getting to understand how the Asian region has designed its professional mediation. How comes the Asian region has actually swallowed up the commercial mediation practice? How did they structure themselves? And so we're inviting all of you. Secondly, also, which has been posted on the chat, is that we meet weekly. We don't meet monthly. Before COVID, would meet monthly, but now we meet weekly virtually. So in case you'd like to find more information, the person who sent you this information, please ask them to make sure they forward it to you, but also you can reach us on the email address that's been posted on the chat so that you can be able to be getting these updates yourself and make sure that you're not left out. WASILIANAHUB is an open community. We are positioned so that anyone who is interested in the work of dispute resolution, whether you call yourself a peacemaker, a peace lover, or a peacekeeper, then this is the home for you. So we are looking for, ladies and gentlemen, to be with you in our subsequent sessions. And in getting to wrap up, then I would like to invite us all to share in the national anthem, and then we can be able to say good night. So ladies and gentlemen, we can be able to say our national anthem.
Oh God
of
creation,
blessed
our
nation, justice be our shield and
defender. May we
dwell
in
in unity, peace, and let it be found in our borders. Wow.
Okay, thank you everyone for coming. We hope to see you on June 25th for our session, and God bless you. Have a lovely night. Feel free to leave.
Okay. Thank you. Christine, that was great.
Okay.
Thank
you.
Thank
Bye.
you very much.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Bye. All right.
Good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Good night. Thank you, Christine.
Good night. Thank you very much. God bless.
Thank you.
Fred. Hi. You're muted.
Hi. I'm here now.
You're muted.
Are you hearing now?
Yeah?
Hi,
Yes, I can hear
Christine.
you.
You can hear me?
Hi.
Hi. That was very
Bye,
nice.
Christine.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, who is that?
This is Victoria. I don't know if you can see. Oh God, who are this?
You're meeting us. You've been muted.
Yeah.
Matthew is meeting me. Yes, Victoria.
Yeah, thanks. You've seen me now.
Yes.
Yeah, Santi from KCLF.
Oh, nice. How are
Yeah,
you?
I am good. I'm at home.
Nice. That's very nice.
Okay,
Hi, Phyllis.
Asante.
Hey, that was
Karibu.
very
Bye-bye.
nice.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay, good
You
night.
know, it's a topic I like.
Oh, okay.
Good. But Christine,
Yes.
hi Christine. Yeah, there's a question you didn't. There's a question you didn't ask. You didn't answer.
You didn't understand.
You didn't answer.
Which one?
I asked about the Constitution under Article 45. It talks about the right to make a choice. You can voluntarily walk into the marriage and leave the marriage, and the freedom of association and all that. Remember the Nyakundi case in Malindi?
Yeah.
Yes, yes, the recent one.
Yes.
But
So
you see,
so how do you really marry that to bring sanctity of marriage? Because if he says that even if you had not dissolved your previous marriage and you behaved like a single woman, you had the right to contract another marriage, and the other, your former husband, does not have any right. So how does that really marry?
by the way, I read that judgment, and okay, with no fear of contradiction is wrong, because there's no way you can contract two marriages using two different systems of marriage. It's not possible, because once you are married by monogamous marriage, you lack
Yes, Christine. Christine, there was a question. There was a question. Someone, and I think that relates to capacity. One cannot contract a marriage when they are already married, right?
Yes, yes.
And then under customary law, once the marriage is registered, one is still potentially able to marry, right? Under customary law.
Yeah. Yes, customary, you can marry as many women as possible, but each woman you should
must consent.
Yes, with consent, but each woman you should give them a certificate. You should appear before the registrar together, and you get to get a certificate, having shown that you have fulfilled all the requirements of a customary marriage pertaining to the particular community you come from.
I was going to ask you a question that I wanted you to highlight. Where do you find the difference in terms of mediation and arbitration in marital disputes?
Where do you see difference between
mediation and arbitration in marital disputes?
You see, arbitration, we apply more on the issue of the property.
Okay.
You see, most of the time you find the parties have intertwined investment, because nobody ever imagines that they will leave their sweetheart, their loved one. So you find that it becomes messy when maybe a car is registered in this person, or a property is registered in this person, and now they need to exchange and do transfers and all that, and they are not agreeable. Then that goes to the issue of arbitration, where you can actually push the person to understanding the particular commercial transactions that are involved, or the commercial investments that are involved, and the person is able to have give and take, and then you can have a proper distribution of the properties. But you find most of the time when it comes to mediation on the issue of the property, you will agree, because mediation, you cannot really push the person to agree. It is arbitration where you find if there's a clause that in case of any dispute in any particular transaction that you have written, then you can be able to refer the matter for arbitration straight away. So sometimes it depends with the scenario, but most commercial transactions will find there will be a clause, or in case of any dispute or any difference arising from this, then you go for arbitration. And arbitration can choose the arbitrator, or it can be appointed by the chairman of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, like that. Yeah. But mediation, either way, if you start with mediation before you go for arbitration, because there's this MedHub, you can still iron out many issues, or you can narrow down the issues such that you can be able to be going for 1 or 2 issues that are pending. That's why I was saying, if you have marital disputes, it's very important you listen to one another to the extent that you can, so that you can be able to have less acrimonious relationship thereafter, or even when you go for another relationship, you will not carry over the burdens. You'll be able to be seeing the bigger picture instead of blaming one person or the other on the issue.
Thank you.
What is, let's celebrate.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we will take this as the opportunity to be able to close. Christine, thank you very much, and it's been a delight, and also having the after cocktail that you've given us. As we say that we have the next mediation virtual mediation symposium day coming up on June 25th from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Please join us to find out how the Asian tigers swallowed up the international commercial mediation, and we'll be focusing on Malaysia and Singapore. And we hope that for Kenya, we'll get some learnings, especially as the discussions around the Mediation Act and what direction to go, and also the ADR policy and other areas of or alternate dispute resolution are discussed. And also you can also join us on June 11th and June 18th at 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. for our discussions focused on the commercial sector and also the financial industry. Thank you very much, Christine, once again. And ladies and gentlemen, please have a good night. Thank you. God bless you.